Hello and welcome to Williams Mullen's Benefits Companion, a podcast that helps employers navigate the complex legal challenges of managing their employee benefit plans. I'm your host, Brydon DeWitt, and today I'm joined by longtime friend of this podcast, Beryl Ball, Principal Financial Advisor at CAPTRUST. Thanks for coming back to the Benefits Companion, Beryl.
I'm pleased to be here in the new year, Brydon.
Yes, Happy New Year. We are recording this podcast in early January of 2026. And Beryl, I really wanted you to come on here and kind of get out your crystal ball and look forward into 2026 and help our employers and plan sponsors understand what may be coming up in this new year. And so we just ended a year of regulatory changes and market volatility and involving participant expectations. And now employers are poised to look at what's happening coming up in 2026. And Beryl, I know you spend a lot of time advising plan sponsors, advising benefit committees, investment committees. And so you're keeping an eye on market trends and regulatory developments. And so as we're looking ahead in 2026, I thought it would be great to have you on the podcast to tell us, what you see as some of the trends and things to look out for going forward. So with that introduction, I leave you to your crystal ball and let us get some insight what's coming in 2026.
Thanks, Brydon. I did actually, if you remember the days of the Magic 8 Ball,
Yes.
I turned my Magic 8 Ball around and around because there was so much to think about for 2026. So finally got it to maybe 4 items I would like to talk about today because I think they're the main ones that plan sponsors are going to face. The first is rulemaking. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening at the Department of Labor and maybe Congress. We do have an election year coming up in 2026, so we may see some congressional action. Here we've just gotten over Secure Act 2.0, getting those catch-up contributions into Roth for the first time. People are just adjusting to that. I'm sure getting out communications, thinking about how they make that happen. And here we are because we're going to have some new items to talk about in terms of rulemaking in the Department of Labor. Besides that, there's the never-ending litigation. We may see some new retirement plan litigation and a little bit different focus. I'll talk just briefly about what we're seeing on the fiduciary side because that's also part of the rulemaking. And then a little bit about participant outcomes because we're starting to see some changes for participants, more personalization, but also different types of target date funds, which kind of are going to lead us to some conversations about rulemaking. So with those 4 is what my Magic 8 Ball talked about. So let me jump right in. So first thing we're going to probably see is some changes in the rules around ESG, environmental, social, and governance. That's the big ping pong ball that's gone through Republicans and Democrats and how should plan sponsors and fiduciaries evaluate environmental, social, and governance investments. Depending on whose administration is there, we've seen different rules. My prediction is that we're going to go back to the 2020 rule, which was part of the Republican administration, which says that you may not consider ESG rules. So the first thing that was done was the Biden administration rule was not enforced. And now we should get something from the Department of Labor that harkens back to the 2020.
And I feel for employers or plan sponsors, plan fiduciaries that followed the rules under the Biden administration. And now we're going to have new rules under the Trump administration. And it's all interpreting ERISA's fiduciary requirements. And so what do you do? Don't mean to throw you a curveball, but what do you do if you followed the Biden guidance and included ESG funds in your plan lineup? And now we get new rules that say, well, the way you did that technically violates ERISA.
So we're going to have plan sponsors reconsider their core lineups. They may want to take solutions such as looking at self-directed brokerage options if they don't already have those as a way to include an ESG that is basically the participant's choice rather than the plan sponsor's choice. As also, as you all always know, it's all about the documentation.
Right.
Can they prove that they're including it and that it meets all the investment performance standards that it should without ever including in their thinking an ESG overlay? So
Right.
those are two options that I think will be out there as we move forward. There's also been a lot of conversation about proxy voting. There have been some antitrust rules coming out and concerns about how proxy voting works. That's still very nebulous right now as to what kinds of rules we may see. The bigger one probably is the August 7th executive order that President Trump brought out to have the Department of Labor consider guidance on using alternatives such as private equity, private debt, cryptocurrency, and plans. Our thinking, Brydon, is that we will see alternatives happen is part of target date funds and managed accounts
Okay.
rather than a single core investment in a plan that is cryptocurrency. Record keepers may or may not be able to even take care of those kinds of things. But we're actually already seeing certain record keepers getting ready. So we're seeing Fidelity, Capital Group, and T. Rowe Price already having products ready within their target date complex that include alternatives. The other part of this, which wasn't part of the rulemaking, is the focus on retirement income as part of a target date fund. And there we're seeing Vanguard, others combining with even other investment firms like TIAA to put out a retirement income type product. So it's out there. The rules aren't there. The guidance isn't there, but I think record keepers think it's going to happen, and so they're gearing up, and their priorities are considering both retirement income and alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure something's going to happen. Right, we're going to receive regulations, and I hope plan sponsors realize that that executive order didn't change the law, it didn't change the regulations. So until I'm not comfortable with alternative investments until we get some sort of safe harbor, regulatory safe harbor.
And I suspect that is probably what we will see. As far as Congress is concerned, will there be a Secure Act 3.0? That's not coming through as clearly in my Magic 8 Ball. One thing that we may finally see is for those plan sponsors who have 403B plans in the nonprofit space, we may finally see the use of CITs happen.
Right.
So that I think is Congress may finally, that's been out there for a long time, but may finally happen. We're also on the Secure Act 2.0. 2027 is going to bring us some new rules for our plan sponsors who have a lot of lower income participants. The Savers Match is coming for 2027, so we'll be needing to get ready for that as we go forward. So those are, I think, some things that we've got on the legislative and rulemaking part. Litigation, the Cornell decision may change some of the procedural requirements. Don't know, Brydon, if you have some thoughts there as to what we may see.
Yeah, the Cornell decision may lead to more meritless lawsuits. I don't see anything for plan sponsors to do in response to the Cornell decision. But just to recap what the Cornell decision was, under ERISA, there are certain types of transactions that are called prohibited transactions. So generally, plan assets can only be used to provide plan benefits and to pay reasonable administrative expenses. And plan assets cannot be used to benefit parties and interests. You can't have transfers of assets or goods or services between a plan and a party in interest. And that's under Section 406 of ERISA. And if you stop reading at Section 406, every service arrangement for a 401k plan, 403b plan, ERISA plan, record keeping services, for example, investment advisor services, such as what Beryl provides if paid from plan assets, would be a prohibited transaction under ERISA. Fortunately, Section 408 of ERISA provides statutory exemptions from the prohibited transaction rules. So if you can use plan assets to pay for necessary services, and provided that no more than reasonable compensation is paid for those necessary services. So that's how plan assets can be used to pay for record keepers and investment advisors and attorneys and other service providers for plans because of ERISA Section 408. The Supreme Court said that to get past what's called a motion to dismiss, the initial barrier to proceeding with a lawsuit, that a plaintiff only needs to plead the elements of Section 406, that plan assets were used to pay for the record keeping services, that the plan fiduciaries engaged a record keeper and paid plan assets to the record keeper, period. Stop. That's get you past the motion to dismiss, even though Section 408 is there to save the fiduciary. Some courts had said, no, you have to plead both, that there was this 406 transaction that did not qualify under 408 for the exemption. The Supreme Court said, no, 408 is an affirmative defense. So, again, I don't see anything for plan sponsors to do in response to this except to be aware that there could be more meritless litigation because it's easier to get past a motion to dismiss, but perhaps not, because is a plaintiff going to go to the expense of litigation if they are not going to be able to refute the Section 408 affirmative defense if it goes to trial? So we'll see. But there's a lot of talk about Cornell, but I'm not really sure what to tell participants or plan sponsors to do in response.
That's a great overview, and I appreciate that because I'm learning as we go about the Cornell decision as well. One thing we are seeing, we've seen every kind of lawsuit about record keeping fees, investment fees, etc. One new area is capital preservation types of investments and money markets. Which is better? Some plans have both. Some plans have one. Some plans have the other. How are we going to benchmark whether is a capital preservation type of investment supposed to be benchmarked against cash? Sometimes money market rates are better than stable value type rates. So that's maybe an area that we're going to start seeing some litigation. So it is possible that that's a fairly new area, at least on the retirement plan space. And then is just moving to the third area, fiduciary. We do continue to see more plan sponsors moving from 321 to 338 as all of the things we've just talked about get more and more complicated. And the same thing on the administration side. We may see more plan sponsors looking at a 316 fiduciary to help them with administration, especially where you have lean human resources departments and people who may not have the expertise to make sure that all the things that need to happen and get filed and get it taken care of on a regular basis are done so.
And just to back up a little bit, so 321 investment advisor is someone who advises plan fiduciaries on the investments. A 338 investment manager actually makes the decisions. So
Indeed.
basically fiduciaries can outsource the decision-making process to the 338, but fiduciaries still have an obligation to monitor the performance of the 338 investment manager. Just wanted to clarify that for the listeners.
Okay. No, thank you. Thank you, Brydon. I guess I'm so familiar with those terms, they just kind of roll off the tongue. And lastly, participant outcomes. I can't believe I've gotten through this conversation without using the term AI. But we are probably going to see more use of AI to personalize what participants see from their record keepers, what their reminders are, how they work, however they get that type of personalized education and information. AI may help make that a more personalized attitude. So, lots coming out of the rulemaking, fiduciary issues continue, litigation issues continue, and participant outcomes. So, lots to think about for 2026.
Well, Beryl, thank you. That was a lot downloading from your crystal ball or 8 ball or whatever you're using to look ahead. But that was a
Thank
really great summary of what's coming up in 2026. So that'll wrap up this episode of the Benefits Companion. If listeners have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please contact me. You can also visit our employee benefits page at williamsmullen.com/employee benefits. There you can find out more about our team, as well as past episodes of this podcast and legal alerts. Finally, be sure to subscribe to this podcast to be notified when our next episode posts. Thanks for listening.
This podcast contains general condensed summaries of actual legal matters, statutes, and opinions for information purposes. It is not meant to be and should not be construed as legal advice. Individuals with particular needs on specific issues should retain our services or the services of other competent counsel.